Hey, what's up? It's your boy Rawk, and I am pissed! Recently, the gaming industry has fallen victim to the dimensions fad. Whether it be 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, and sometimes even 4, every developer is trying to cram as many dimensions as possible into their games, and I, for one, am tired of it. I wish we could go back to the glory days of gaming, where games would be given 1 dimension and would have to make do. And the worst part is, some games aren't even content with picking 1 number. For example, this game has 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. That's 5 fucking dimensions! Who allowed this? Three dimensions are overrated. Let's get back to basics, shall we? By 2006, the Paper Mario series was hitting its stride. The Thousand-Year Door was a couple of years old by this point, and people were in love with that game. Sure, it wasn't the hottest seller in the world, but if you played that game, then you had a soul. So if a game is a big success, the question has to be asked, where's the sequel? Holy shit. Pretty much right after development wrapped up on the Thousand-Year Door, another Paper Mario game was already being brainstormed by the series producer Ryoto Kawada, and he specifically wanted to create other types of games using the Paper Mario series. Well, he sure got what he wanted. The project began development on the Nintendo GameCube, and as such, the team wanted to make something that was very distinct from the Thousand-Year Door. They looked at the 2D Bowser sections from that game and justifiably thought an entire game in that style was the next logical step for the series. I mean, who could blame them, really? So with that decided, a sequel to the Thousand-Year Door was slung into development, but around the middle of its development cycle, Nintendo's next system was right around the corner, then codenamed the Nintendo Revolution. With its motion controls and new analog stick, it was the perfect platform for a 2D Paper Mario game. A lot of late-life GameCube projects were making their way over to the Revolution around that time. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess famously released on both platforms, Nintendo were considering a Super Smash Bros. Melee port with online play, and the new Play Control line saw a bunch of GameCube games make the jump with some enhancements. The Wii was pretty much the GameCube 2 when it comes to power and graphical capabilities, so it was very easy for developers to make the jump with their GameCube projects. Guess what happened? And so on September 14th, 2007 here in the UK, the project was fully realized as a platformer with RPG elements, known only as Super Paper Mario. Oh, Super Paper Mario. The first game in the Paper Mario series that I enjoyed. It wasn't the first one I played, but it was the first one I enjoyed, so that's gotta count for something. That's right, unlike every other game so far, this isn't my first Super Paper Mario rodeo, more like my second or third. I played this game when I was younger and absolutely loved it, but I haven't played it since, which means that all of my good memories with it are absolutely drowning in... Son of a bitch, I thought you were gonna say mayonnaise. This game is definitely the black sheep of the Paper Mario series. It's not a forgotten game by any means, but most of the time when you see people talking about Paper Mario, this game is very rarely thrown into the convo. I mean, when you do some critical thinking, it does begin to make sense. Before this game we had the face-melting heights of the Thousand-Year Door, and after this game we got... mediocrity. And because of that, Super Paper Mario falls into this weird grey area, snugly between the 2 extremes the series is now infamous for. In the eyes of many, it doesn't really fit into either category, so it's just left out of the discussion most of the time. But that's the thing. Even when this game is acknowledged, it's pretty damn divisive. People either love it, or they hate it. Which side of the fence am I on? Well, there's only one way to find out. Today we're being told a story of the Dark Book of Prophecies, a book that was said to hold the future of anybody who dared to read within its pages. But what the book doesn't specify is that reading it comes with a lifetime subscription to depression. None who have read the book ever found true happiness, because apparently the one thing you aren't supposed to do with this book is read it. It came to be known as the Dark Prognosticus, and on that gleeful note, we cut to Paper Mario. Why the can't I escape you? And Paper Luigi, they're having a lovely peaceful day. So peaceful that Luigi is bored shitless. Bitch, we have an 18-hour-long game to get through. We don't have time to be bored. The bros decide that they want to go visit Princess Peach, and wouldn't you know it, as they're leaving, a crazed Toad stumbles in to announce that the princess has been kidnapped. Is anybody surprised at this point? Well, I'm sure Luigi would be, because we learn that he has dementia, as he tries to explain that that bad guy must have stole Peach. Buddy, you can stay home if you aren't feeling well. We head over to the castle of that bad guy in order to thwart his plan and take back the princess. But when we get there, Bowser hasn't even begun his attack on the Mushroom Kingdom. In fact, we arrive in the midst of him planning the attack. So needless to say, a conclusion of confusion is reached on both sides. But I'm willing to let that slide because this is the first time in the series that we get any sort of interaction between Luigi and Bowser. I love it. But of course, we just aren't allowed to be happy anymore, as this bliss is rudely interrupted by this game's main villain. Count Black. This bastard has stolen Princess Peach and declares that she'll be used to destroy all worlds, and in retaliation, Mario's foot decides it wants to know what Count Black's face tastes like. Well, that could have gone better. Everybody else in the castle is sucked into Black's pants, and we cut to a wedding altar.
Did I miss a page?
Black has brought Peach and Bowser together to marry each other, and the princess has multiple questions that aren't limited to who, what, when, where, and why. Black asks the couple if they'll stick together till their games be over, and Nastasia, Count Black's assistant, hypnotizes Peach into compliance. And the wedding of the evil king and the pure princess brings forth the Chaos Heart. But before we can learn just what the hell one of those is, Luigi's here, everybody, and he's on a mission to... everything up.
He knows what he's best at.
We cut back to Mario, who's awoken by a mysterious voice in Bowser's castle. Turns out the voice belongs to this here butterfly, who's better known around these parts as Tibby. Tibby takes us to Flipside, the dimension between dimensions, and this game's hub world. We're introduced to Merlin, who is the owner of the only thing that can counteract the prophecies of the dog Prognosticus, that being the light Prognosticus. Funny how that works out. Merlin shows us that there is a void looming above Flipside that extends to all dimensions. A void that is growing at an alarming rate, and if its growth isn't thwarted, all worlds will be consumed. The light Prognosticus foretold that a hero matching Mario's exact appearance would arrive to put a stop to the void. Now, you would assume this means Mario, but just give me a sec here. Yeah, it's Mario. Merlin presents us with the first of 8 pure hearts, the direct counter to the Chaos Heart. And then he asks what most people ask me when I first meet them, am I willing to save all worlds from destruction?
Nah, I'm not really feeling it today. Goddamn. Fine, I'll do it.
The first pure heart is thrust into our possession, and with that, we are greeted by a phrase that rivals end of chapter for how damn iconic it is. Now that we have a pure heart, we need to find its heart pillar, which of course means that we finally get to take control of Mario.
It's about f***ing time. I've missed that good old Paper Mario Overworld gameplay, so let's get right into... Okay, everything I know is a lie. Good to know.
I somehow hadn't gathered this from the fact that everything in this game so far has taken place with a dimension deficiency, but Super Paper Mario is a 2D platformer, which is definitely a huge departure from the previous 2 games, and is also potentially the most contentious subject surrounding this game. A lot of people lament the fact that the tried and true gameplay they loved is no longer there, and I absolutely get that. When you see the words Mario and Paper within a 5-mile radius of each other, your mind's going to immediately jump to this, and many people just don't understand why Nintendo would change what was working so well. It's because this is much better, you fucking idiot. After 2016's little incident, I'm legally obligated to tell you that platformers are my favorite types of games. I love 2D and 3D games in the genre pretty much equally, so seeing that Paper Mario made the jump to this genre is fascinating to me. Is there anything wrong with the turn-based RPG approach of the original 2 games? Absolutely not. In fact, I actually think that they fit the series a whole lot better. They lend themselves to the paper aesthetic so much better than a 2D platformer, because, you know, everything's already flat in these games, making it paper-based just seems redundant. I think Nintendo knew this too, because this game leans pretty heavily into a more digital aesthetic, which is evident throughout pretty much the entire game. And with the combination of the genre shift and the thematic shift, this is a very different type of Paper Mario game, and I for one am absolutely drooling to see how this game plays out. So we find the heart pillar and a door appears on the top of Flipside Tower, and this door leads the way to Chapter 1. Now chapters work a lot differently in this game, and as such, so does the story progression. The chapters are split into 4 sections that each act like a typical 2D platforming stage, and the story beats only really happen at the beginning and end of each of these levels.
Now this may lead many to assume that this game is lacking in the story department, and I knew this concern would be abundant, so I went looking for answers ahead of time. The book doesn't lie.
Before each of the levels within a chapter, we're given a brief summary of the story heading into the level, and they provide a pretty decent amount of context as to what's going on. In the first 3 levels of a chapter, there generally aren't a massive amount of major story beats, and they're usually reserved for the 4th and final level of any chapter. And while this makes everything seem somewhat disjointed, in execution, it works really well and still manages to provide a coherent and consistent story in each and every one of the game's chapters.
You know what that means. It's time for me to let tradition be tradition and give a brief plot synopsis of each of the game's chapters. But something just doesn't feel right this time around. Oh, son of a bitch, it was battle system analysis o'clock 5 minutes ago. What the hell's going on here? Oh, shit!
Now I know, we already talked about how this game is 2D, but that in and of itself leaves a lot of gameplay elements from the first two Paper Mario games up in the air as to how or even if they're going to be implemented into this one. So, the battle system in this game is almost non-existent. You jump on enemies and they die. I don't want to alarm you, but this is all we can accomplish. This inherently leads to a lot of questions. Where are the action commands? Where are the partners? Where's the XP and leveling? Where are the items? Which I didn't really talk about in the first two games, but they're there and they're here. But instead of taking out one enemy, if you're lucky, in this game, they can kill an entire screen of enemies. And like, yeah, I get why they're this effective. The enemies are piss weak, especially compared to enemies in the previous games. But it was never that much more effective than just pressing the jump button a couple of times. Now, the action commands are here, you just have to... To perform action commands, you have to shake the Wii remote after landing on an enemy.
I wonder who's pissed about this.
Listen, I've played enough New Super Mario Bros. Wii in my time to not be bothered by intrusive motion controls anymore. I'm no bitch, I'll play Paper Mario like it's fucking tennis if I have to.
Eat Goomba!
This solution isn't perfect by any means, but considering this and this, I'm not sure what else they could have done, and that's fine. It gives my non-thumb body parts something to do for a while. The action commands then lead into this game's XP system, just like any action commands would. The more you're able to pull off action commands successfully, the more XP you'll gain. The more XP you'll gain, the more you'll level up. But this time around, you don't get to choose between HP, badge points, and flower points, because in this game, two of those things simply don't exist. Guess which one lived? Yeah, leveling up only increases your health in this game, not even your attack power, which sounds pretty lame. But that's only because you can deal double damage to enemies by collecting a card of them, which is the closest thing this game has to badges, which also don't return this time. This game could only include so much from the series past. It has Luigi, you're asking for a lot here. Now to many, this might make leveling up seem somewhat worthless, and if this system was in place in either of the past games, yeah, I'd have to agree. But battling is not as central of a mechanic anymore, so it not really achieving much for you makes sense here because it isn't a focal mechanic. And the health bonuses are actually good incentives to level up because the enemies in the later parts of the game can deal wicked amounts of damage. Again, on paper, this sounds like a bad change, and hell, to some people it may be, but in execution, I personally think it works really well. Okay, we've ticked items, action commands, and XP and leveling off the this game list. So, what's next? Well, partners, of course! Partners. Plural. More than one.
Who knew Mario was into polyamory?
So many people bitch and moan about how, oh, there aren't partners in this game. Well, wake up, you dumb f***. There's been one in front of you the entire time.
Oh, the tree!
Remember that butterfly we met earlier? Well, she was actually our first partner. What a mind f***. First you tell me Mario was into polyamory, and then you tell me he's into butterflies. This is a lot for me to handle. Actually, the partners in this game are called pixels, so I guess the critics were right. There are no partners in this game. We meet the pixels in all of the game's chapters, and while they do have unique abilities, they aren't really all too helpful in battle, because this game barely even knows how to spell battle. Just like everybody's first love, Tippy here is this game's equivalent to Goombario. You point the Wii remote at the screen, touch anything that dares to exist, and boom, you just received a full-fledged biography. Tippy can also reveal secret platforms and doors, and this is required multiple times throughout the game. But I could never get the pointer controls to work properly, so whenever parts like this came up, I would always end up killing a fly.
David!
Tippy is actually a first for the Paper Mario series, in that she's constantly by your side. Even when you have other pixels out, she's always there, which is kind of symbolic, seeing as the story almost entirely surrounds her. But we are getting way ahead of ourselves here.
Okay, we've checked everything off the checklist, and hopefully that was enough to communicate that while there are a lot of differences here, at its core, this game still has all of the fundamental building blocks that make a great Paper Mario game. They're just executed in a new and interesting way, and if that wasn't enough... pass me the f***ing liquor. So, now that we finally got that out of the way, I have a sudden urge to jump to the midpoint of Chapter 1, and I think we should do that now because I need to know why!
About halfway through Chapter 1, we meet this guy, and after he attempts to rob us, he teaches us the dimensional flip ability. Oh, I wonder what this does.
What the fuck?
The past 20 minutes of being a lie! We can now flip into 3D, but only for a limited amount of time because being in heaven for too long would just make you cocky. But now we can find all sorts of things we couldn't before. Secret mandatory pathways, secret optional pathways, secret hints, hidden items, a will to live. Is there anything we can't do now? You will be flipping constantly after you get this ability, and it adds a lot more to the already pretty interesting locations in this game.
Like what, a third dimension?
This ability is great. It has a ton of utility, it's incredibly interesting, and really makes this game stand out. It fucks with my head, but I can't deny it is super.
And that is Super Paper Mario, a really unique entry in the Paper Mario series. Sure, its gameplay is different, but it's wildly enjoyable, and the story... Son of a bitch!
Guess who got carried away with talking about the gameplay and forgot to cover the main attraction of this game? I did. Alright, let's power through this one. It's going to take so damn long, considering the fact that this game is stuffed to bursting with story. But we'll be fine. So, let's do this. F the transitions, we don't have time! Chapter 1 sees us heading to Lineland to meet Bastovius and learn the ability of a mental breakdown. We then climb Mount Lineland and reach Yule Town, where we meet the Pixel Throw, who, as his name implies, can be used to grab and throw items and enemies and many other forms of concrete matter. We use him to solve puzzles and cross the Yule Desert, where we meet up with one of Count Bleck's henchmen, O-Chunks. This guy is a total meathead who talks like a pirate and acts like Wario. And just like pretty much every character in this game, he's fucking hilarious. But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna step on him. He should consider himself lucky. People would usually have to pay for that privilege. After that encounter, we meet Fractail, the robotic dragon guarding the pure heart. They tried real dragons, but they just weren't cut out for it. Fractail is awaiting the hero of legend, and is ready and willing to grant us access to the pure heart, until Dimentio shows his creepy fucking face. Dimentio is another one of Count Bleck's henchmen, and this guy is basically a magician with cynical intentions and a warped sense of humor. I love him. However, I gotta dog points from him because he corrupts the dragon, forcing us to kill it in an incredibly violent fashion. On the whole, I'm not a fan of when characters do that. After our senseless slaughter, we head into the Sanctum of the Ruins and meet up with Merlumina, a spirit who assisted in the creation of the Light Prognosticus, and has been waiting for the hero to show up for many years. She passed away while waiting, but her spirit lingered on to deliver the pure heart to the hero, so while we're here, we may as well take this thing off our hands. Wouldn't want to be rude. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but at the end of each chapter, we have multiple interludes, one of which taking place in Count Bleck's headquarters, the other being a somewhat ambiguous story that unfolds throughout the entirety of the game. For now, I'm not going to focus on the latter one, because I think it makes the most sense to talk about the entire story as a whole, and also, I'm not ready to cry yet. I will talk about the happenings at Bleck's place though, but only if O-Chunks is there.
Well, I gotta do it now.
The Count and Nastasia find out about O-Chunk's defeat, which confirms to them that the hero of the Light Prognosticus is indeed real, and isn't someone to simply be ignored. He means business and has a mustache. They consult the Dark Prognosticus to find out where we'll be heading next, and while Count Bleck fucks off to sort that out, Nastasia alerts O-Chunks that some of Bowser's enemies are resisting the ways of the Count, so she's leaving him to wallow in his own failure while she attempts to get them in line. We cut to, oh my god, Princess Peach? She wakes up outside of Castle Bleck and she runs into two of Bowser's minions. One of them runs off to defend Bowser's honor or something like that, but the other wants to help Peach escape, and then, oh, wait a minute. We control Peach?
I ask you, how could this game possibly be more like the other Paper Mario games? Oh, that's a technicality!
We find the hammer roll from earlier being hypnotized by Nastasia, and this smartass over here says we gotta get out of here!
Really? I think we should stay a while.
Nastasia catches up with us, hypnosis strikes again, and before Peach can get the old zippity-zappity treatment, dun 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 dun, plot convenience! We head back to Flipside and present the pure heart to Merlin. He tells us to find its heart pillar, and right as we're about to head out the door, this whackjob bursts in screaming about a girl that fell from the sky. The girl in question is Peach. She wakes up and we take her back to Merlin's. He then gives us some more backstory about where the next pure heart is, and after hearing this, Peach joins our party. How the hell does that work?
What the f*** is up with this game? How can it keep throwing new ideas at me so goddamn consistently? And how can each and every one of them be so damn good? I don't understand!
In this adventure, Mario is anything but lonely, as we get to play as Princess Peach and two other characters. Oh man, I wonder who they could be. Princess Peach has two unique abilities, being the ability to glide and use her parasol as a shield. However, she can't flip into 3D. That's only an ability the mustachioed Italian men are able to utilize. He must be Swedish. Peach is damn fun to play as though, and the addition of a non-Mario entity adds a lot of strategy and charm to the game. Different situations can be handled slightly differently depending on who you're playing as. Different characters treat you differently and have unique things to say based on who you are. Peach makes everybody wet.
We've come full circle.
Chapter 2 sees Mario and the princess crossing through Gloom Valley to reach Merlee's mansion. This big fancy place filled with all sorts of expensive shit. So it's a good job we met a bomb on the way there. Boomer is the next pixel we meet up with. I was expecting a penguin, but no, false alarm. This guy is this game's obligatory bomb partner. Just like Bombette and Bobbery, Boomer explodes and does very little else.
The f did you just say?
We enter the mansion and incompetence reigns supreme. Oops. We're then introduced to dear God anybody but Merlee, as we're scolded for breaking this here vase. This is Mimi, the final of Complex Hench women, and she's so mad that she decides to subject us to slavery. Captain Olimar, eat your heart out.
I'm f***ing amazing at this part of the game.
Alright, okay, so, people love to bitch about this part, about how it takes so damn long to go between all of these rooms, do all of these tasks, and earn enough rubies to buy the code to the safe that contains enough money to repay our debt. It all takes so damn long. Well, in dog years, yeah. Like, sure, it takes a little time and effort, but it's not that bad. And if you really don't want to do it, then fucking don't. Just look up the save code on the internet. Hell, I did this, and look at that, I've got a one-way ticket to No Debt Island. Is this really a valid complaint? We run into a new pixel named Slim, who allows us to turn sideways, which is a focal mechanic of this game, but the camera doesn't come with us. That makes this completely different. We head on down to the mansion's basement, and we find Merlee. Gotcha. Mimi reveals herself and transforms into this creepy-ass spider with the most fucking disgusting sound clip. Jesus, did Miyamoto snap someone's neck for that? She chases us into the ladies' bathroom where we find not one, but two Merlees. Both talk to us only through rhyme. If I didn't too, that would be a crime. We have to find which one's a fake. Someone's taking a shit here, for God's sake. We take part in an awesome quiz to find out which one Merlee is. A Paper Mario tradition returns again. A full game of these quizzes when? We ask the questions to the Spirit and Scum. 5 of the 10 there are to choose from. And after we've received our answers, we must find Merlee from these constant dancers. We find Merlee and should be done, but with this choice a fight is begun. You coward! We kill Mimi, thank God, and we obtain the 3rd pure heart. Black decides to send Dementio on a quest to see what our blood tastes like, and then Luigi's here, everybody! He falls for the whole damsel in distress shtick that these two Goombas pull. And I mean, who could blame him? When I think of a princess locked away in a tower, this is the face that comes to mind. We get to play as Luigi here, but we don't get to see if he has any sort of standout abilities, which is pretty odd. Well, whatever, I guess. He tries to help the Goombas escape, but one is hypnotized. I'm starting to notice a pattern here, and the other one willingly joins Black's side and helps hold down Luigi so that he can be brainwashed and using Count Black's army to fight against the people he's closest to. That Goomba's a bitch. Chapter 3 sees us heading to the Bitlands. I'm telling you, man, they knew the paper aesthetic wouldn't work here. At the very beginning of the chapter, Tippy is eaten by this ugly chameleon, Francis. So I guess we have to go save her. Not exactly what I call a fun afternoon in the square world, but hey, a man's gotta do what a man's gotta do. Eventually, we stumble across a very familiar looking castlescape, and who else would we find here but Bowser, who decides he wants to try and fight us. Buddy, has this ever worked out for you before? And no, now is not an exception. After his defeat, he decides to join our journey because I don't know, he was bored? Bowser is the slowest of the bunch, but he makes up for it not by being the strongest by a landslide and having the ability to one-shot most things with his fire breath, but rather by flailing his arms around at any chance he gets. Bowser's arms are my one true reason for living. After going for a swim, we meet Thudley, who grants us the ability to ground pound. Oh wow, it's like an actual Mario game now. We climb a tree and use the winds at the top to gracefully fly over to Fort Francis. How the hell does this groping scaly bastard have such an impressive and highly guarded castle full of robot maids, video game consoles and merchandise, and plushes of all the partners from the first 2 games?
Yes, I'm jealous of the fucking frogman, okay? What's new?
In the depths of the fort, we find another pixel, being Carrie, and with that, the game is broken. If you want a foolproof way to beat this game with little to no effort and be drowning in the copious amounts of sex you'll be having, use the Bowser Carrie combo for the rest of eternity. Nothing else matters. Carrie completely eliminates the one flaw that Bowser Bowser has, that being his lack of speed. So combining the two causes everything in the game to die if you blink at them. And I would include Francis in that everything, but he only lets Peach into his room. No Bowser's allowed.
This guy's so much better than me, it's scary.
Upon our arrival, he boots up Swoon.exe, and the Mario series finally makes its debut in the dating sim genre. There's nothing he can't do now. We get to play this out from Peach's perspective, and the responses we can choose from range to reasonably bitchy to bed. Now, fuck me! No matter what you choose though, Francis grows increasingly horny. Super Paper Mario really wants to take the Thousand Year Door's title, huh? Peach crushes Francis's computer and to a greater extent, his aspirations, and in response he tries to kick our collective ass. And wouldn't you know it, people who spend all of their time playing video games aren't too great at fighting.
Oh, I am gonna kick your...
We save Tippy and grab the fourth pure heart. But before we check out what's happening in Castle Black, if we head back to the beginning of this chapter, we find one of 3 optional pixels in this game, Barry. He creates a temporary shield, which is mildly useful on the off chance that you actually get to use it, but for the time it takes to realize, oh, he might be useful now. Go into the menu, bring him out, and actually use his ability. I don't know, man, I'd rather just walk left to avoid an enemy and use those extra seconds to depress myself.
I'm closer to death than I was this morning.
At Castle Black, Dementio is beginning to realize that we're gonna foil his plans. I never expected him to have the same train of thought as a Scooby-Doo villain. He f***s off and Nastasia tries to convince the Count that it's not too late to put a stop to this, to which he kindly offers her a ticket to Piss Off Avenue. She declines out of devotion to him, and they both head off, allowing Dementio to reveal his eavesdropping. You snake! And then back in Flipside, Mel introduces that Bowser is the 3rd hero mentioned in the Light Prognosticus.
No fucking way. I mean, he's on the box art, but still, no fucking way.
Chapter 4 sees us heading to outer space. That works great for us. We free a fish into a dingy underground puddle, and we use its bowl as a helmet. Now, this chapter is potentially the one that people dislike the most in this game. I feel like I say that about every aspect of this game, but this is actually what people seem to dislike the most, I promise. The gameplay here is a lot different, as you'll spend most of your time swimming through space in order to find certain things. And for a lot of people, the more open space of, well, f***ing space causes them to get lost with annoying frequency, particularly in the woe zone in 4.3. And while I can understand how this can happen, I personally did not have this complaint whatsoever. I was able to navigate all of these areas perfectly fine. There's always some sort of indication of where you need to be going. They can be pretty easy to miss, but if you're paying enough attention, you'll be able to get where you want to be with relative ease. Or who knows, maybe I just got lucky and I'll hate this part when I'm bored and lonely. We follow an SOS signal and we find Squirt, a space squid who wants nothing more than for us to follow him to the pure heart. Tippy throws a hissy fit about this, but Mario blindly follows him. Ladies and gentlemen, the duality of man. We eventually reach a space toilet that Squirps needs to drop a squirt in. It's occupied and we need to hunt down some space toilet paper for the person inside. That is a sentence that came out of my mouth and it refers to a Mario game. Who am I? We find an ancient scroll and decide... F*** it, that'll do. And we free Fleep from the stall. Fleep is our next partner, and he can flip dimensional rifts in order to reveal their secrets. The creativity of the Pixels' names is on another level. We use this ability to continue on our quest until we run into a new enemy, and... he looks so familiar. Who could it be? Oh well. I'm sure beating the shit out of him will help jog my memory. Nope, but he does introduce us to his brobot. That's gotta count for something, right? Squirps finally leads us to the Pure Heart, which is being guarded by a statue of his mother. He reveals that she is the Queen of Squirpia, and he is the Prince. His mother told him many years ago that destruction would come to the world, so she hid the Pure Heart in the Woe Zone, while sending Squirps to guide the legendary hero to its location when the time came. And with that, we grab the Pure Heart and allow Squirps to finally be reunited with his mother. At Castle Black, there's a new enemy in town, and he's already fitting in quite nicely by having a story of how we kicked his ass. The other minions aren't impressed and promptly piss off. Anastasia once again tries to convince Black to put an end to his plan, and that works, it doesn't. At Flipside, Tippy decides that consciousness isn't for her. So while she's enjoying that arc of her life, we head off to find the next heart pillar, which turns out to be in Flopside, an alternate reality version of Flipside that even has its own version of Merlin, Nullrem. Wow. Wo did Yeti Mok Poo Tu Tat Iman? I know the whole alternate version of the main area has been done to death in Nintendo games at this point, but I actually really like Flopside. It has the best town in known to man, but it also has a lot to do that Flipside doesn't offer, and it's just really fun to compare the two. I dig.
Tippy realizes that unconsciousness was just a phase, and she joins us for Chapter 5, which sees us heading to the downtown of Crag in a very Super Mario Bros. 2 fashion. I hope this isn't a sign. Yeah, Super Mario World was my favorite chapter of the Thousand Year Door. How could you tell? The Floro Sapiens are a race of walking flowers, and they're just going to town on the Cragnons, the residents of downtown Crag. The Floro Sapiens kidnap some Cragnons not long after we arrive, and it's our job to save them. Along the way, we fight O-Chunks, but not just any O-Chunks. O-Chunks with a twist. Dimentio sends us to an alternate dimension wherein O-Chunks has more power, but I have Bowser and Carrie, so you. We meet another pixel called Kudge, and you can make him scream out a catchphrase. Now I'm a mature, sophisticated individual, and I would never do something so childish as to make him say something inappropriate. I made him shout shit.
There were no limits and I have no filter. I will not be held accountable.
Kudge is a hammer, and wow, it's like I'm really playing a Paper Mario game now. On our travels, we meet up with national TV star Flynn Cragley. And man, what I wouldn't give to just crag this guy in the fucking jaw. He's the only Cragnon to not replace 90% of a sentence's syllables with crag, but he makes up for that with ignorance and incompetence. We help him find his crew, and together, we discover that the Floro Sapiens are kidnapping the Cragnons in order to brainwash them with Floro Sprouts, in order to turn them into the king's slaves. We just refuse to be okay with that, and we meet the pixel known as Dottie out of retaliation.
We mean business.
Dottie can allow us to shrink to the size of like half a pixel. Not that pixel, this pixel. And we use this ability to find out more about what the Floro Sapiens are doing to the Cragnons. Turns out Dimentio used a Floro Sprout on O-Chunks in the hope of actually making him a competent fighter, but no. The Sprout falls off his head and we use it to trick the Floro Sapiens into taking us to their king, Crocus IV. This guy is fucking fabulous! But that doesn't make him immune to a can of ass whooping. Upon the king's defeat, a group of his underlings tell us that the only reason Crocus was capturing the Cragnons was to save his people. The Cragnons were constantly polluting the water in the valley, and the Floro Sapiens had to suffer through drinking it in order to stay alive. And the only way to put a stop to this was to capture the Cragnons and force them into doing good. Crocus and the Floro Sapiens weren't villains at all. They were just trying to protect their people, and we killed them for doing so. Kinda makes you think about things from the perspective of the other side for once. And of course, Flynn Cragley pretends he already knew all about this. Man, f*** off. We grab the pure heart, but for the first time in a Mario game, it doesn't really feel like we deserve it. We slaughtered the king of a species who were trying to undo the wrongs of the Cragnons. We shouldn't be rewarded for that. Speaking of things that shouldn't be rewarded, at Castle Black, Nastasia is punishing O-Chunks for his continued failures. Meanwhile, Dimentio convinces Mimi and Mr. L to take matters into their own hands and defeat us themselves. Chapter 6 sees us heading to the Sama Kingdom in order to take part in a 100-man battle to obtain the next pure heart. While this is obviously a daunting task, it's somewhat undermined by the fact that the void has become fucking huge. Throughout the entirety of the game, the void in the sky has been growing bigger and bigger, but it's pretty easy to forget about that when you're so caught up in the moment-to-moment gameplay and story beats. But in Chapter 6, with the monotony that comes from having to duel 100 enemies, it's clear as day how overpowering the void is. And this is no coincidence, because after we pass through the 30th gate... that's it. An entire chapter, an entire world, full of culture, history, and most importantly of all, people. It's gone. This is one of the most powerful moments in the game for me personally. So many times in games we're told about an imminent threat that can and will end the world, but here, we actually see that happen. We see the destruction of a world happen right before our eyes. And those last few minutes of desperation and struggle that come before this? It makes it hurt that much more to see this place gone. We can re-enter the door that leads to the Sama Kingdom, but all we're greeted by is an endless expanse of whiteness. The silence of the once bustling kingdom slaps you in the face with a soul-crushing realization that there is nothing we can do to reverse this. We find the pure heart that's been turned into stone, but before we can grab it, Mr. L shows up in an attempt to stop us from resurrecting the heart. We beat Mr. L and grab the pure heart, and after we leave, Dimentio appears to... kill Mr. L dead. Jesus Christ! We take the heart back to Merlin, but before you can figure out what to do with it, Dimentio appears to... fucking
can kill us too. This guy is on a roll. Mario wakes up in the underwear, the gaming equivalent of hell, also known as World -1, a really neat callback to the original Super Mario Bros. We make our way to Queen Jades, the queen of the underworld. We talk to her, but she's so rudely interrupted by a phone call telling the queen that her daughter is missing, and just like that, we're tasked with bringing her back. Loveby is the daughter in question, a NIMBY who talks in old-timey English and is disgusted by the mere existence of men with mustaches. Do I have bad news for her? In exchange for Loveby's safe return, Jades agrees to revive the pure heart for us, and on our way to track down Loveby, we find Luigi cowering behind a rock, as any Luigi would. He wastes absolutely no time and joins us on our quest, and with that, the 4 heroes of the Light Prognosticus are reunited. But 2 of them are dead. Luigi has the super jump ability, which is pretty damn handy down here. The dead just love things to be inaccessible, which I guess makes sense. You don't need wheelchairs in hell. We reunite Loveby with Jades, and the queen holds up her end of the bargain by reviving the pure heart and the Mario Bros and sending us off to Flipside. We reunite with Tibby, but Bowser and Peach are still nowhere to be seen, so hopefully we can find them in the door that leads us to Chapter 7. You gotta be f***ing kidding me.
There's something about hell that just keeps pulling me back in.
We head straight back to Jades, and she gives us the task of taking Loveby to her father in the over there. Along the way, we meet Bowser, and we re-recruit him. And not long after this, we enter a fight with the Underchomp. But this isn't just any old fight. This is a turn-based fight.
You can't complain anymore. 1 turn-based battle is as good as 100 turn-based battles, and for some people, less is more.
After traversing hell, we decide to skip purgatory and go straight to heaven. And while ascending the over there stair, we find Peach, but she's taken one of a power nap, so we need to revive her with fruit. There are 5 colored apples to choose from, so might as well try all of them and see which one works. Nope, 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 nope. Finally. We reach the over there, and it's overrun by Skelebits, and their leader, Bone Chill, who's frozen Gramby in an attempt to take over the over there. He tells us that Loveby is actually a pure heart, and a battle ensues to try and nab her from us. We of course destroy Bone Chill and save Gramby, but Loveby demands answers. Jades and Gramby, through their own tears, reveal that Loveby is not their real daughter, in an incredibly emotional scene that genuinely brought a tear to my eye. The pure heart that the pair protected was at constant risk of being seized by evil, so in an attempt to protect it and themselves, they transformed it into a form that no one would suspect. A daughter. This understandably sends Loveby into a fit of both rage and heartbreak. She is furious at the pair for pretending to be her parents, but Jades and Gramby grew to love Loveby in the many years they shared together. Although she was created to protect the pure heart, she became a part of their lives. They loved her like she was their daughter. But that had to come to an end. Loveby returns to her true form, and we grab the final pure heart. I'm not crying, you're crying, damn it! The gang at Castle Black discuss final preparations as our arrival draws ever closer. And after we put the final pure heart in its pillar, a door appears atop Flopside Tower. And with that, it's time to enter the void. It's time to face Count Black and the imminent end of all worlds. It's time to put an end to Super Paper Mario. This is it, the final chapter of Super Paper Mario, and this is some seriously good stuff we got here. We traverse Castle Black, and as we move further into its walls, we slowly begin to lose all of our party members. After a fight with Ochunks, both he and Bowser are left trying to stop a ceiling from crushing them to death. After a battle with Mimi, both her and Peach are left holding on for dear life after the floor beneath them disappears. And after trying to convince our remaining heroes to join his alliance, Dimentio sends us on a world-hopping game of tag that culminates in a battle between Luigi and him. And after his defeat, Dimentio sacrifices both himself and Luigi to ensure that Count Black will never be able to get his hands on the man in green that the Dog Prophecy speaks of. With only Mario remaining, we make our way to Count Black, who knows just as well as we do that only one of us comes out of this fight alive. Only one of the Book of Prophecies can come to fruition, and with that in mind, we begin the final battle.
Stop! I don't want the game to end yet. Remember how earlier I said that the memories recalled after each of the game's chapters are best talked about as one complete story? Well, name me a better time than now to finally tell that story. I dare you.
This battle is what the entire game has been building towards, but it isn't even half as impactful if you don't know the tale of Timpani and Blumere. These memories are nothing short of a love story, a genuinely emotional tale that unfolds as you further progress through the game. The story follows the human girl known as Timpani and the member of the Tribe of Darkness known as Blumere. Timpani found Blumere injured at a cliff base, and after taking care of him, the two very quickly fell in love. The two sneak away from their homes in order to see each other as often as possible, to learn more about each other, to share meaningful moments and conversations with each other. But Blumere's father caught wind of the fact that Blumere was sneaking out of the castle to talk to a human. This slowly begins to get in the way of the pair's love, and Timpani is unable to bear it anymore. She tells Blumere that they can no longer see each other. She can't bear the pain of seeing Blumere hurting as the result of his father. Blumere begs that Timpani marries him and joins him in finding a world that will accept their love and allow them to be happy. Timpani agrees and the two take off to find a home to call their own. They're happy. They have everything they need in each other. There is nothing more in any dimension that they could ask for. One day, however, Blumere is unable to find Timpani, but rather finds his father. After demanding answers, it's revealed that Timpani no longer resides in this world, because Blumere's kind and humans should never mix. It's heavily implied that Blumere's father killed Timpani in order to regain control of his son. Outraged, Blumere finds the Dark Prognosticus, and despite his father's pleas, he opens the ancient book. And Blumere is no more. From the person once known as Blumere rises an evil count, a count who is hell-bent on destroying all worlds in order to heal his heartbreak. From the Dark Book of Prophecies, Count Bleck rises. That's right, Count Bleck, the villain we spent the entire game trying to thwart, is the Blumere that we've spent the entire game sympathizing with. When we enter his room, he immediately recognizes Tibby, and in turn, Tibby recognizes him. Tibby was not always the helpful butterfly we know her as now. She was once a human who fell in love with an unlikely soul that she bonded to for the rest of eternity. Tibby and Timpani are one and the same. The long-separated pair are reunited at last. Blumere is in the final stages of destroying a world that would not allow him to be with Timpani, and Timpani has arrived to thwart his plans. The only way for all worlds to remain is for Mario and Timpani to destroy the man she once loved. Never in my life have I ever felt so genuinely awful about defeating a villain in a Mario game. The story here and the connection that Timpani and Blumere have is genuinely heartbreaking. It plays on a fairly common love story trope, sure, but learning about their origins in parallel with trying to revert Blumere's revenge on the world is such a powerful concept. The connection between these two characters is real and rich, and to some of us, it feels relatable. And after all of that, we have no choice but to defeat Blumere. Even if we know that all worlds will be saved, that doesn't change the fact that after they were finally reunited, Timpani will have Blumere ripped away from her all over again. God damn it, this story is almost too much to handle. It actually baffles me that this story is in a video game, and a Mario game no less. But regardless of the tears in my eyes, we battle Count Bleck. Bowser, Peach and Luigi all return to give Mario a helping hand, and the combined power of the 4 heroes and the 8 pure hearts is enough to bring the Count down. Bleck pleads for his demise as it's the only way that his beloved Timpani can remain alive, whilst Tibby begs that Bleck is spared. A tear-jerking scene to say the least, and a scene that led me to believe that I was going to have to make that choice. But, to my slight relief, Dimentio returns to deal the finishing blow to the Count, but Nastasia blocks the blow and is fatally wounded. Dimentio knows that it doesn't matter whether or not the Count lives, so long as somebody is in control of the Chaos Heart, and he doesn't hesitate to be that somebody. Us using the Pure Hearts to defeat Count Bleck meant that Dimentio was able to enact his plan uncontested, and after he brainwashes Luigi into turning back into Mr. L, he summons Super Dimentio. You mean to tell me, after all this time, Luigi and Mr. L were the same person? We enter into a battle with Super Dimentio, but we are unable to damage it at all. Mimi and Ochunks make a return, and they, along with Nastasia, shower Count Bleck in love and hope. They convince him to not give up, that he can still have a life with Timpani. The overwhelming happiness this brings the pair conjures a new set of pure hearts that Tibby delivers to us, and with his invisibility broken, we are able to destroy Super Dimentio once and for all. Luigi returns unscathed, but Dimentio leaves enough of his newfound power to send the Void into hyperdrive, and it begins to consume all worlds. In a last-ditch effort, Count Bleck takes us to the altar from the very beginning of the game, and after the two explain that their love for one another never died, Blumere asks if, despite all of the pain and suffering and trauma he's caused her, Timpani would still marry him. The long-lost lovers are finally able to fulfill the promise that they made to each other many years ago, and their marriage summons another set of pure hearts, and that is enough to rid the universe of the Chaos Heart. And as the bells chime, all worlds are rid of the void and the destruction it caused, and our tale is brought to an end. Blumere asks Timpani if she's ready to be taken to the place he promised of, the place where their love will be allowed, and their happiness accepted, and as the void closes, Timpani joins Blumere for the rest of eternity.
Super Paper Mario is obviously a hugely different experience to the games that preceded, and for many, that's enough for them to disregard it. And I don't feel that that's fair. Super Paper Mario, despite how far it strays from the original games in the series, is still a fantastic Paper Mario game. It still retains almost all of the things that makes the series so great to begin with. But it's so much more than that. The world and story of this game are so rich and alive. Every part of what this game tries to convey to us feels so real. The connection between Blumir and Timpani, the bloodshed and heartbreak that their relationship causes, and the eventual resolution, it all feels so genuine, in a way that I've never really seen pulled off before. To see so many people just push this game to the side as a simple 2D side game genuinely hurts me, because despite all of its flaws and imperfections, I think I prefer this game to the Thousand Year Door. While I can admit that this is an objectively better game, Super Paper Mario just has more that appeals to me personally. It took everything that worked with the Thousand Year Door and ran further with it than you ever could have imagined. I much prefer the gameplay. I prefer the locations and the creepy implications that go with a lot of them. I prefer the overall narrative, and most importantly of all, I just straight up had more fun with this game. I love Super Paper Mario more than almost any game I've ever played, and I can say with 100% confidence that it is my absolute favourite Paper Mario game. Because I somehow doubt that Colour Splash is going to change that.